What's up YouTube? It's your boy Grassy TV back with another Hero Siege video. Season 5 begins on December 13th and has been fully loaded with over 200 new sub-skill trees across all classes, as well as new items and runes, a Hero Siege style mapping system, a rebirth of glyphs, angelic augments, better Chaos Tower scaling, much needed performance improvements across the game, and so freaking much more. I am super excited to explore the new season and very humbled to be making content on this awesome game. Today I present to you my starter build guide for the Gush Nomad in Season 5. The Nomad has a desert theme aesthetic and specializes in fast-paced combat, area of effect damage, and high mobility. This build offers a smooth leveling process for both beginner and advanced players. In the guide you will find information on build functionality, a step-by-step leveling guide, a full gearing section, and much more. Let's get started. Let's take a look at some of the pros and cons of the Gush Nomad. First, it is ranged DPS. I know initially it might feel like melee, but as you get your augment, you become very much ranged DPS. It has S tier AoE. There are very few skills in the game that have this much AoE. You have built-in mana sustain. If you look in the footage, you can actually see that we have Cloud of Sand. Instead of teleporting to the Cloud of Sand, we actually are the cloud. Nomad also has access to a movement speed aura and a skill that causes you to have a 100% dodge chance. However, there is a lot of screen clutter on this one. Even if you have max transparency, there's going to be some form of lag on your PC. There's just so many freaking tornadoes. The build can also be quite mana intensive, especially early if you end up getting, a lot of faster cast rate, but you don't have really good sustain, or you haven't beefed up your damage yet with flat damages or whatever it may be. It can feel like you're using a lot of mana. The single target is above average until you get the augment, and then you feel much better. And arcane casters can be quite expensive to scale. This build is no exception. Next, we'll take a look at some of these skills and passives that make this build work. First is your main damage. This is Sand Gush. You unleash a gust of sand that slows enemies and spawns tornadoes, dealing arcane damage. Cloud of Sand is your movement skill. This will turn you into a cloud of sand that travels forward, dealing arcane damage. You can cast the spell again and teleport to it. Later on, once we get the augment, we actually turn into the Cloud of Sand, as well as you do get Oasis Aura. When active, this increases your and your party members' movement speed and attack rating. Our crazy crowd control ability is Dissipating Tornado. We summon a tornado around us that pulls nearby enemies and causes us to dodge all attacks and unleash sand at enemies when they strike you, dealing arcane damage. We use Sand Vortex to debuff enemies and restore our mana. We summon a massive vortex of quicksand that pulls enemies inside, dealing arcane damage, slowing and breaking their arcane resistance. And Mystic Sand is free cast rate and mana sustain. If you enjoy my content or find it useful, please consider donating. I am dedicating all donations and stream revenue in December to go towards my mom's fight with cancer. Of course, donating is not required to view my content, and I won't treat anybody differently, so only support if you can do so comfortably. To all of my contributors, thank you guys so freaking much. It's so hard to express how much that really means to me, so thank you. Within the written guide is a section designed to teach a few Hero Siege leveling basics to newer or returning players. If you're in this category, be sure to check that out, as it is really good information to have whenever you're leveling from 1 to 100. Next, let's talk about how to allocate points into our skill tree while we level. Use the tabs below to show the skill tree progression as you level. Keep in mind some classes may have multiple trees for AoE clearing, single target, or utility options. Starting at level 1, we're going to have Eye of Ra as our main damage. We're also going to put 1 point into Cloud of Sand for movement, and then we'll put the rest of our points into Eye of Ra to give it the most damage. At level 8, you'll put the rest of your points into Eye of Ra. You can put a point into Healing Sun Rays. This gives you some life leech if you would like to, but mainly we're just trying to get as much damage on Eye of Ra as we can. At level 16, we are going to respec, put 1 point into Mystic Sand, 1 point into Sand Entombment, 1 point into Cloud of Sand. The rest of your points you either put into Sand Gush to give it the most damage, or if you want to split them between Sand Gush and Cloud of Sand to increase the damage of Sand Gush without actually increasing its mana cost, you can do that as well. At level 24, we'll put 1 point in Dissipating Tornado, 1 point into Oasis Aura. This is your movement speed aura, and the rest will go into Sand Gush. At level 30, we're going to respec again. This is because Sand Vortex has a higher percent synergy than Cloud of Sand. So we're going to respec, put 1 point into Mystic Sand, 1 point into Sand Entombment, 1 point into Oasis Aura, 1 point into Cloud of Sand. The rest of it will go between Sand Gush and Sand Vortex. At level 60, you should have a max Sand Gush and a max Sand Tornado. A few points will go into Mystic Sand if you need the mana sustain from it, and the rest you'll put into Cloud of Sand. At level 80, you'll max Cloud of Sand, put the rest into Dissipating Tornado. And finally, our level 100 Sand Gush tree will look like this. 1 point into Cloud of Sand for movement, 1 point into Mystic Sand. This is your mana sustain and faster cast rate. You can put more points in here if you would like to. 1 point into Sand Entombment. This is supplementary damage. Max Sand Gush, Max Sand Vortex, Max Dissipating Tornado, Max Cloud of Sand, and the rest you can either put in Oasis Aura for more movement speed or Mystic's Hand if you want the faster cast rate and mana sustain. Sub-skill trees are a new feature in Season 5. Simply click on the plus sign in the top right of the skill you're looking to spec into, and a new window will pop up. You gain 1 point for every 5 character levels for every skill that you have allocated. You can reset this tree anytime for free, as well as you can have 1 augment per skill. Listed below are all these sub-skill trees that I recommend while leveling. Starting with Sand Gush, this tree focuses on maximum damage by taking as much additional projectiles in AoE as possible. For Cloud of Sand, this turns you into the Cloud of Sand and focuses on increasing your travel speed and duration to zoom around more quickly. And last is Sand Vortex. This tree focuses on turning Sand Vortex into a single target debuff skill with Arcane Break and a 5% execute. You can also take Locust Whirlpool for mana restoration on hit during bosses. Let's talk about attribute allocation. Skills can be quite expensive to use early, especially as you put more and more points into them. It's increasing the mana cost. You will want to put points into energy until you can find your first flat skill damage item, as well as some sustain so you're not chugging on mana pots. After that, follow a 50-50 split rule between intelligence and vitality. You'll do 2 points intelligence, 2 points vitality for every level. Let's move on to gearing. This section is designed to give you workable suggestions on what gear to acquire at different stages of the game. You as a player need to look at your current gear and figure out what options make the most sense for you. Due to the addition of the sub-skill trees, there are item procs or combinations that will not be listed here as they aren't discovered yet. It's up to you to experiment. Alongside gearing in Season 5 is star levels. Be sure to check out my star levels video explain for more information, but this is really for more advanced players and won't affect your playthrough. So don't worry, none of the gear that I'm using in this guide has star levels on it, as it is not required to complete any content in the game. For most of leveling, you'll be searching for rare or mythic items that match your character's damage type, but you may come across some satanics that also make sense to use. I cannot guarantee you dropping a specific satanic, nor will you stop leveling to farm for a specific satanic, so my gear recommendations will not include them. Rune words, however, are nearly guaranteed, as the bases are very common and you can obtain rune from completing quests in Act 1 Normal, Nightmare, and Hell, then using the Prospect Station in Act 1 to downgrade runes to the ones that you need. This does not include the runes that you'll naturally drop playing the game. Be sure to check the runes level requirement and the white bases level requirement to ensure that you meet the requirement for both. The in-game journal is a bit misleading on the minimum level requirements for starter rune words, so best to check for yourself. Just a reminder, while we're leveling, we are mainly looking for normal through mythic items, so here are some weapon affixes to look out for. Just a reminder, while we're leveling, we are mainly looking for normal through mythic items, so here are some weapon affixes to look out for. A rune word to consider is Sky Song. You can use it as early as level 29 in any tier base. Just be sure to make it in a spellblade or a one-handed sword. Here are some offhand affixes to look for. Rune word options to consider. First is Sky Song. Again, you can use this as early as level 29. This is your offensive option. You'll make it in a shield. Second is Divine Contemplation. You can use this as early as level 21. This is your defensive option. It has a ton of resistance on it. You can make this in any 3-socket shield. Here are some helmet affixes to look for. A rune word option to consider is Scholar. You can use this as early as level 27. It does have a skill on it, some mana on kill, as well as some physical damage reduction. Here are some chest affixes to look for. Rune words to consider. The first is Shadow. You can use this as early as level 17. It does have 25% movement speed as well as 25% faster cast rate on it. Second is Angle Oxuana. You can use this as early as level 35. This has up to 4 skills, some faster cast rate, arcane skill damage, and minus enemy arcane resistance. It's a very strong chest. Here are some glove affixes to look for. Here are some boot affixes to look for. Be sure to prioritize movement speed, as traversing through zones is important. A couple rune words to consider. The first is Quick Steps. This is going to give you the most amount of movement speed. And second is Ghost. This is a better option as you do get +2 skills, some physical and magical damage reduction, as well as movement phasing, allowing you to move through enemies and objects. However, you do need a Mal rune, and you're most likely only going to get this from your Act 1 quests in Normal, Nightmare, or Hell. This is up to you. Personally, I wouldn't prospect down a Vex or a Goal into a Mal, so unless you get the Mal specifically, probably not worth until later. Here's some belt affixes to look for. Here's some ring affixes to look for. Here are some amulet affixes to look for. And lastly, here are some charm affixes to look for. As a fresh level 100 character, There really isn't best in slot gear at this point. Most items could be swapped with strong mythics. Item decisions are going to revolve around how your character feels over direct power upgrades. For example, if your character has a built-in teleport but low cast rate, choosing items that have higher, faster cast rate than others can make the build feel more smooth to play. You could put any combination of these budget items together and feel capable of completing hell difficulty and begin pushing difficulties. Do not underestimate how strong mythic items can be, especially with the new star level system. Starting with weapons, some good options are Sky Song. Look for an intelligence, arcane skill damage, or all skills base. Dragon Knight's Flail is a poor version of Divinity, and Divinity is our best option here. Try and find a base with intelligence, arcane skill damage, or all skills. For offhands, we have Sky Song and Divine Contemplation. Both these are good options. Sky Song is an offensive option. Divine Contemplation is a defensive option. For helmets, if you're still wearing a Scholar, it's easily replaceable. Creator of Secrets has up to 25% all res, a magic skill damage, 40 FCR, and up to 2 skills. Deathlord's Crown has up to 3 skills with 15 intelligence. This is also magic skill damage. And Crown of the Midnight is probably our best option here. We get 3 skills and up to 30% magic skill damage. For chest, Angle Oxuana is by far the best option. It's very cheap to make and very strong. If you need resistances, Grand Wizard's Robe is also a good option. 2 skills, 30% FCR, some physical damage reduction up to 35% all res. Heaven's Might is another good option. You get up to 4 skills, some physical and magical damage reduction, 100 vitality, and up to 6 sockets. For gloves, you have Conjured Mitts, Anubis' Mighty Hands, Mevius' Mighty Gauntlets, Zealot's Deathbringers, or Wisdom Holds. Any of these gloves will serve you well. It just really depends on your budget. For boots, you can go with Wizard Boots. They have a +1 on there with 10 intelligence. If you're looking for the most movement speed, Quick Steps would be your option. The best option here is probably Ghost, just because you get +2 skills, some physical and magical damage reduction, as well as movement phasing, so you can move through objects and enemies. And if you find a +3 Grand Wizard Silk Shoe, these can be a decent option as well. However, you don't get very much movement speed. For belts, Viper Magi gives you 20% FCR and 15 all res. Knight's Girdle is +2 with a little bit of vitality and some physical damage reduction. Commander's Sash is my preferred choice, as you do get the 1 skill, a little bit of sustain, physical damage reduction, and up to 20% all res. For rings, you have Kodo's Wedding Band. This gives +1, up to 30% movement speed, and 215 nice. It's very nice. Iron Ring of Prometheus is good if you're trying to teleport around into different zones, or maybe you're boss rushing. This also gives you a couple of resistances. Absence of Constraint has up to 25 FCR and 18 arcane skill damage. And Satanic Eye is great if you're trying to cap your resistances. For amulets, any of these options will work. Unfathomable Puzzle, Shining Pearl, All-Seeing Eye, Dark Lord Sigil. Dark Lord Sigil is probably the best option here, as it does give you 2 skills, up to 30% arcane skill damage. But I can see the benefit of running All-Seeing Eye, having 3 skills and up to 50% magic find. Here's some affixes to look for on Mythic Charms. Satanic Charms aren't really an early game buy. They'll be rather expensive, but I would rather show you a couple options to look out for while you're grinding. The first is Moonshard. This can get up to -35% arcane resistance with a 75% arcane resistance penalty to you. Second is Damien's Cage. You can get up to +3 arcane seals with up to 35 intelligence. This is also magic skill damage, very strong. As far as balancing goes, this part is still underway in the beta. I will be testing all builds live on Twitch and updating this section in the written guide as I do, but I would rather have this section empty than to steer players in the wrong direction. Here's a list of all the relics that work with this build. You're going to have to decide on your best option based on your current gear, stats, and build feel. However, the first 4 are the ones that I recommend, with the utility options being the remaining. Currently in Season 5, Mercenaries generally only have one purpose, being a magic find or a bot. Mercenary magic find is applied to your on-kill magic find, so we will be stacking as much as we can get. Here's the Mercenary skill tree I recommend. And for gear, again, generally we're looking for the most magic find. However, for weapons, there is Aurora's Might, which can give you a huge resistance bonus on your character early. Once you've solved your resistances for your character, any of these options, Sacred Whip, Ceremonial Dagger, or Death Smear, are good magic find weapon options. Here's some assorted magic find chests, magic find helmets, and magic find offhands. Below is a list of satanic potions and their effects. I recommend damage options first, then build into some utility, but the choice is really Here's a detailed starter highlight filter made by me specifically for this build. This ensures that you will highlight exactly what you need all the way to hell. Below that, I do explain how I put this filter together so that you know exactly what is being highlighted if you want to make changes. Remember that highlight filters do not hide any items. you need a filter in order for that to happen. If you're not sure how filters work, be sure to check the written guide. I do have a bit more explanation on how filters work, as well as I do have the beginner's guide that goes really in detail on how filters work. Again, this is just a high, and that's going to wrap up today's starter build guide for the Gush Nomad in Season 5. I truly hope this guide helps you in your journey. It was a ton of work, and I can't wait to see how blown away everyone is by Season 5. Be sure to check out more starter builds at the end of the written guide or via link in the description. Hit that subscribe button to let me know you want more Hero Siege content, and come say hi on Twitch at twitch.tv/Graxy_TV for live Graxy fun. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.